Alright, in this video, I want to quickly show you how you would factor a trinomial of the form x squared plus bxy plus cy squared, where b and c are just some number, any number, does not matter. Well, it will matter occasionally, but for your homework and exam purposes, you'll get good numbers. So occasionally you'll come across a trinomial that's in this form. And you might look at that and think, well, is that even factorable? How would I find the factors of that trinomial? And, it's a very confusing thing to start with. And I'm going to show you how to go about it. We're going to derive how to do it. And just like in the previous videos, I'm going to start with the factors that we know are the factors, FOIL them, end up with a generalized trinomial, and then use that to reverse engineer any trinomial with any numbers that might come your way. And so, again, this is with a leading coefficient of 1. So, no number other than 1 here. I want to point that out. But, anyways, I'm going to tell you what the factors are and what form they take as a fact. And you just have to believe me, But I'm telling you that something of this form has factors of this form, x plus my times x plus ny, where again, m and n are just some numbers at this point. We don't know what numbers they are, but they are numbers. They are not variables. They are numbers. Unlike x and y, they will be numbers. And so, to reiterate, these factors are what's going to give you a trinomial that looks like this. I am telling you that that is a fact. You will have to believe me for this to make sense. And so, knowing that, let's FOIL this and see what we end up with. So, again, following FOIL, we do first times first, which is x squared. And then we do outer, so outer, we get plus nxy, so n being the number and then times xy. And then inner, we go x times my, so that's going to be plus mxy. I just like putting the number first because the coefficient is usually all the way on the left side of your term. And then lastly, my plus ny will give you m times n, and then y times y is y squared. So this is what we get, something of this form. Now, these two both have n and m being numbers, both have an xy, so we could add those together. Since we don't know what they are yet, we're just going to say that that's xy times the sum n plus m. Okay, so I've shown you now that given factors that take this form, if you FOIL them, you'll end up with a trinomial that takes this form. And since we know that this, because I'm telling you that it does, something like this also has factors of this form, then these coefficients have to match what these numbers tell you. And so, if this and this both have factors of this form, then this should have factors that tell you n plus m will equal b, since xy here has an n plus m and xy here has a b. So whatever number b is, it'll have two numbers that add to it, and c will be the product of n times m. And if you watched the last video, this is the exact same setup as that we did before. We have a leading coefficient of 1, so whatever has now an xy instead of just an x will be the sum of two numbers, and whatever is attached to your y squared or whatever variable squared here will be the product of those same two numbers. And so whenever you have something of this form, it's going to take the same exact process as we did before, except the setup for the factors will be a little bit different. So let's start with an example. So let's say I have x squared plus 5xy minus 6y squared, and I want to factor that. Well, this takes the same form as that, So I know that I need to find two numbers, two numbers that add to 5 and two numbers that multiply to give you -6. So we have negative right here, -6. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to take just 6, because the negative we will figure out after, and I'm going to find factors of 6. And we did that before. It's 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. And so we want to find numbers that add to 5 and multiply to -6. And so the sign matters here. So I want to find a combination of positive or negative, or both positive or both negative, factors of 6 that satisfy these two qualities. Well, if we have 2 and 3, they add to 5, but we can't have one of them be negative because then they would not add to 5. So let's look at 1 and 6. Well, 1 and 6 will multiply to 6, but we need -6, so we need one of them to be negative. Now, if we make 1 negative, then 6 minus 1, or plus -1, will give us 5. And so that's what we want our answers to be. 6 plus -1 gives you 5, and 6 times -1 gives you -6. And so using a combination of positive and negative numbers, we found two numbers that add to 5 and multiply to -6. And before, our answers would just be x plus m, x plus n, whatever those two were. But since we have the form x squared plus bxy plus cy squared, the only thing that we'll do differently is say that our answer is x, still plus m, but plus my. So we'll say plus, let's say m is 6, we'll say plus 6y. And now x plus ny, well, plus -1y will just be -1y, so -1y. And now these are our factors, and you can kind of write this in a simpler form to say x plus 6y times x minus y. Get rid of that 1 just because it looks cleaner. But all in all, if you have something of this form now, it's always going to take the form x plus my times x plus ny. You still do the same tactics solving for m and n, but you write the factors differently. And you now have to add a y here, because when you FOIL this out, you'll get x squared minus xy, plus 6xy, and then minus 6y squared. So you need to add the y's in the factor because you have a y squared out here. And this will simplify. Anyways, I'll do more examples of all of the cases of factoring later on in another video, but if it was confusing for you, then leave a comment and I'll try to answer your question. And if you thought this was helpful, then you should like and subscribe.